It's now 2018 and it's time to continue one of my channel's traditions. Every year I switch up what groups I'm making this message to based on my perception of their current relevance in politics and conversation and discussion, and this year is no exception. Now, the reason I put the alt-right and race realists first requires a little bit of backstory and context. A YouTuber called Otherinity set up a Discord server in which he intended to share information about the alt-right to take them down and defeat them in the marketplace, in the battle. But it all turned to shit when it turned out there was a second server that they were using to gather private information and docs material and personally identifying information about these alt-righters. It turned into a massive scandal and many of the people involved had their reputations rightfully damaged for that. But after that, a lot of people came to this erroneous conclusion that because somebody who is insane, known as Otherinity, tried to take on the alt-right and failed because he fucked it up completely with the way he went about it, race realists must be right. And they must really know the science, and they must be right on the substance, because logic. If one dude fucks up approaching these people in a spectacular way, then race realists and the alt-right, they must be totally correct. This has led to a kind of a split in the, I don't know, anti-feminist, skeptic, anti-social justice warrior group of people, because a bunch of people have decided, like, okay, the alt-right and the race realists have, you know, incredibly salient and logical and reasonable and scientific points on race. I simply disagree with their prescriptions, such as setting up a ethno-state, having an unjust racism-based immigration system and so forth, and other people who are actually skeptical and saying, you know, maybe we shouldn't just take these people's word about race, maybe we should look into it ourselves, and maybe we shouldn't just believe everything they shovel. Maybe there's some motivated reasoning behind what they're doing. And based on this whole doxing drama and this whole split, it seems that race realism and racism and talking about what races are superior to what other races based on science and interpreting studies, that is going to be the next big conversation on YouTube. And I have to say, it's quite a fall going from debunking creationists and so forth to arguing that race realists are right on the science about everything. Whatever the case, I already expressed what my message to the race realists would be, which would be you need to demonstrate your claims. When you make a claim about how you identify a race or how a cluster of genes creates a meaningful distinction between races, which is more than just phenotypes or exterior features, and how you can identify that and how it's meaningful and how you can use that we have to ask you to demonstrate those claims. One thing that stands out about race realists is they take their conclusions to studies as a given, and they selectively look at studies. So if there is a scientist inclined towards race realism who comes to some sort of conclusion about IQ, they will look at that as the be-all and end-all of the conversation. And if there's a whole raft of other scientists taking issue with the methodology of those studies, or saying this information is not totally reliable because A, B, and C, or even when the researchers themselves say that it's not conclusive, and that is then interpreted by ideologically race realist scientists as being absolute proof of their claims about race, they need to demonstrate how these studies actually totally support what they say. And I was given shit on Twitter just for saying that. For saying that race realists should demonstrate their beliefs, and not just with motivated reasoning. And the current kind of spokesperson of race realists on YouTube says that race is defined by genetic clusters. And that's a claim where the onus is on him to say what genes and on what variations and to what extent do they have to be arranged and constituted to define the line between one race and another race. But on Twitter I was met with a ton of responses from race realists like, we don't have to demonstrate our claims, it's blatantly obvious that race is a thing, even though you could be thinking about it scientifically or sociologically or socially in terms of the different qualities of race, so that statement doesn't tell you exactly what they're talking about or what they mean by that. They said the overarching thrust of society is for equality and respecting different people as being the same, even though they're not. So the burden of proof is on you to back that up, Tim. Gotcha. Logic. And to me, I would just say that's a fundamental misunderstanding of what the burden of proof is. I wasn't making a claim about my beliefs. I mean, you could ask me to justify my own beliefs in a separate conversation, and I could do that. But say that I could not back up my beliefs about equality and so forth. That would not magically mean that you don't have to back up your point of view. That's not how it works. That's just pure deflection. That's just, oh, you say I have to back up my point of view? Well, look over there. Gotcha. I'm proven right. Like, no, logic doesn't work that way. Do I think I have to back up my progressive views and values, and throughout 2018 I should make an effort to do so? Yes, absolutely. Does that mean whatever confusing notions you have about race and race realism don't have to be backed up? Because you think it's so self-evident that you will just cherry pick and ignore the scientists who raise concerns about this? And about aspects of it that aren't conclusive? No, you still have to do that. This entire video could be taken up talking about the race realists, because for me it's the topic of the moment, but there's just one last thing I'll say on it. Braving Ruin, who's a race realist guy, said, "There's a reason why regressors and liberals and lefties and SJWs don't talk about race realism and don't approach the alt-right. It's because they're so robust and their arguments are so good. They cannot refute them because they're just such good arguments, and those guys are just too intelligent that they just can't do it." Being somebody who's in lefty circles, I can definitively say for absolute sure that that's a total misreading of why the left doesn't want to talk about race realism or approach race realists. You might not like it, but the reason is they see you as just shitty human beings who are just racist trash, who are clinging to outmoded beliefs about race in order to make themselves feel better because they're a bunch of fucking losers, and they want to talk about real things in society, such as what are politicians gonna do, and what are organizations gonna do, and what are people going to do to try to improve people's lives. They don't care about talking about why this race is stupider than this race or whatever in your pseudo-scientific opinion. You can be convinced because maybe it makes you feel good that the reason that the left ignores you is because they think you're so intimidating. It's not the case at all. The reason they won't talk to you is the same reason why when they see a giant pile of turds at the side of the road, they don't pull over and roll around in it. Because it's not productive and it will just make you smell like shit, and nothing will be achieved. And I'm thinking of making a video about race realism because it's not scary, it's not intimidating, the information is not very difficult to understand. The only challenging thing about it is the conclusions. And race realists believe that they have all of the conclusions, that they understand how everything works, and they're just working backwards from confirmation bias. Whereas my opinion looking at this is there are differences between a wide variety of people based on genetics. As far as I can see, that's mostly geographical and how long different groups of people have been in different areas for certain amounts of time. And we can look at IQ, but then you get into big conversations about the validity of IQ and what IQ can tell you about people and how it's tested and how the environment actually impacts people taking these IQ tests and what that says about genes, and also how much that says about the differences between different groups of people. I feel like those are very open questions and those are things that people can talk about, but that's not the way the race realists approach it. They just say the important factor in human differences is being able to point out how these people are better or worse than these other people, and that's not the way that I see it. I think it's a very fascinating topic. There's a lot of interesting things to look at about that. But when race realists are fear-mongering about Jews, even though if we're going by their own standards, Jews have higher IQs, so that means white people are inferior to Jews, right? I don't understand, like, how you can spend so much time fear-mongering about Jewish people. Because they're better than you? I don't even think that. I think that there are genetic clusters. It's just determining how those differentiate between races is very difficult. So long story short, race realists, you have to demonstrate your claims. I shall do my best to demonstrate mine. And in the meantime, stop being such racist fucks. My lefty crew on YouTube and Twitter. I feel like when talking to my own crowd, it might often sound a little bit condescending. Like, I'm the good one. I know what to do, and you should do what I do. So I'm going to tell you what you should be doing for 2018. For my YouTube crew, I think, don't get so bogged down in the fucking drama. There's too much goddamn drama. Goes on for goddamn ever. We cannot get out of it. And I think to that extent, maybe don't focus so much on, like, particular battles with certain personalities, is all I will say. I've been involved in that kind of stuff because everybody on YouTube always gets involved with fighting with certain people. But you can't make your whole goddamn channel about that. You gotta pick your battles and know when to attack and when to talk about something else, when to make a video on some interesting topic or just something that you like. You don't always have to fucking talk about these shitty people who are everywhere and you just can't get rid of them. That's my advice to my YouTube crew. Let's try to be substantial. And my Twitter crew, I have a bit of a criticism for them as well. For quite a while, I have honestly felt like we have been fixated for too long on certain specific garbage individuals, like Paul Joseph Watson, or Sargon of Akkad, or even Ian Miles Chong. I mean, I tweet about these people, and I tweet at these people, and I say, like, what you're saying is stupid, and this is a dumb, shitty thing to say, because it always is. But when I'm involved in discussions and chats and stuff, it's always just like, did you see what Alex Jones said? Did you see what Jack Prosobic said? Did you see what Baked Alaska said? Did you see what Ian Miles Chong said? These people are always going to say stupid things. It's never going to end. Highlighting their stupidity is fine. It's an alright thing to do. But after like a year or two of this, I'm kind of sick of seeing these same people over and over again. I'm just sick of Paul Joseph Watson. They're not going away anytime soon, but they fatigue me. And I think being in lefty groups where we're always talking about the same fucking people over and over again does get a little bit old, but I don't know what the alternative would be. What else can we talk about? Policies or something, or like, oh, how about those taxes? I don't know what the fuck we have to talk about or whatever. Except things being shit. And that's politics. This has already been covered on the Race Realist one a little bit, but close to the new year, I've been getting involved a little bit more with streams, with Skepticologists or Skeptics, or I don't know what the fuck they are. And I've been trying to get involved in their discussions and sort of like be more part of the scene, and it doesn't work for me because all of it is just people slapping their dicks together. It's just always ego, people battling each other, it's internet blood sports, and it's stupid and it's boring, and I don't care about it. But I am kind of like hanging around for some reason. I don't even know why, and I feel like maybe it's because of exposure or something. I want those views, I want some money, like, I don't even know, like, what's the point? It's fairly obvious to me that the only thing that really matters to people is one-upping people that they don't like. If I don't like someone or someone doesn't like me, they'll just constantly be, you said this, you said that, ah, gotcha, ha, found you on something, I found you on this, got you on this, got you on that. That's all that really goes on, and I watch these streams with some people I have streamed with, and it's just embarrassing. It's like Jerry Springer. It's just people flinging accusations at each other endlessly. And I don't really want to be a part of that, to be perfectly honest. So I guess my message to the Skepticologist community would just be, figure out who the fuck you are and what you want to be. Do you want to be Jerry Springer, or do you want to be talking about issues? What is the point of you? Do you just hang around just to make super chats and just make a bunch of fucking money and shit? Do you actually care about anything that you're talking about? And I felt myself getting pulled into that. Holy cow, that guy was sharing pictures of 15-year-old girls. Wow, that guy was trying to have sex with a girl who had the mental age of a 10, 11-year-old, and everyone's defending that because they like him. Yes! And I watch all these streams, and then after having seen all of them, I feel like I need a fucking shower. I just feel slimy, like slime is getting all over me being anywhere near this shit. I don't want to associate with that. I don't even know what that fucking skeptic community is anymore. I don't even know what it's for. I don't even know what they're talking about. I don't know what the point is. I just honestly don't. Figure out your shit, or just disband and go your separate ways like the Beatles, if the Beatles sucked. Donald Trump has been very damaging to Americans, and a lot of them don't know that or care about the fact that he's eroding healthcare with his shitty tax bill, that his tax bill provided a massive giveaway to the rich, didn't help the poor at all. By most analyses, it shows only an anemic growth to the economy, create over $1 trillion in debt because the assumptions about the economic growth were very overinflated, and in the long run will actually lead to a tax raise for the poor and the middle class. I mean, some Americans care, you know, lefties care, and certain people who are tuned into the political situation care, but a lot of right-wingers and Trump supporters don't seem to care about their own well-being. They don't care about how the policies impact them. People are not focused on what actually helps their lives, what actually improves things, what is actually a boon for America and for humanity. What they care about is fighting between the left and the right. We hate Hillary Clinton. We hate Bernie Sanders. We hate the progressives. We hate whatever. So we just literally don't care about what Trump does to us with incredibly shitty tax bills. And no one cares about taxes. Nobody talks about shit like that. It's very, very important. Like, people don't talk about important things, especially on YouTube. And anything I have to say about Donald Trump will be dismissed for lots of different reasons. You're from New Zealand, it's none of your business. Even though it's basically a global community and a lot of things that go on in America do impact my country very directly, it's none of your business. All of Trump's magical assumptions will come true and it will be fine. Hillary would have been worse. She would have started World War III. At least we're triggering the libtards. Yes! The last thing in the fucking world that actually matters is the policy, how it's going to impact people's lives, and what actually helps individuals and people in the world and in life. So on Trump, my message to him was, please fuck up what you're doing in a way that doesn't hurt people, but gets you kicked out of office. That would be ideal, because you being in office is fucking up people's lives. And people don't care about that. They don't care about their life being fucked. And the American right wing, please help Trump fuck things up. The best way to do that, perhaps, would be continuing to fight with the FBI. Hopefully over 2018, Trump super oversteps his bounds, fucks him up, and he gets impeached. Then they could actually have a president who gives a shit about the people and actually try to help them, which hopefully will not be some milquetoast Democrat, but that would still be an improvement from this dumpster fire. Progressives. This is a tricky one because progressives are generally just going about their business, doing what they try to do. They're trying to impact elections. They're trying to talk about the things that impact everyday people's lives in terms of policy. They're trying to provide analyses of things, of geopolitical situations. And they're trying to put pressure on politicians. And I would say, basically no one cares. I know like TYT, the Young Turks, they're always like, we got the fire, we got the movement, we're really making a change. But you look at the halls of power and it looks fairly similar to how it's looked for a long time. American Democrats are still kind of sellouts. In my country of New Zealand, the Labour Party is fairly milquetoast. I just think a left-wing government gets into power, there's a whole bunch of pressure on them to follow through with what they said in the elections, and everybody complains if they don't get it quite right. And that's just the basic operation of the left-right pendulum swinging back and forth. In the meantime, nobody really listens to progressives. They don't really care that much about what they have to say. Right-wing crazies are considerably more influential on their parties and on conservative groups than just practical, down-to-earth progressive people, whose main metric is just helping human flourishing based on things you can measure, like life expectancy, education level, access to healthcare, employment, nutrition, religious freedom, foreign wars, surveillance, so forth, on and on. The biggest voices that actually have influence on the left are the compromisers, and people saying, let's constantly water things down, and they don't have as much fire in the belly for change. So I don't know what else to say to progressives except keep fighting for your issues, keep trying, do your fucking best. People are not necessarily going to give a shit about the substance, because that's just not the world we live in. This is a very short one. Gamers. Don't identify as gamers. Not as an identity. I play games, and I've played games since I was a little kid. My favorite game when I was a kid was Final Fantasy VII, but I've played a ton of other shit. I don't want to list them all off because it takes quite a while, but like LucasArts games, I just reclocked Full Throttle, that's classic. Monkey Island and all those other ones. Final Fantasy, played through all of that. Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross, Sonic the Hedgehog, Resident Evil, Ninja Gaiden, Doom, God of War, etc, etc. I've played a lot of games, and I still play games. But I do not identify as a gamer, because that is a pathetically lame way of identifying. A game is something you do for fun. It's something you enjoy doing. It's not an identity. Like watching movies could be your identity. Movie watchers are such morons. I watch movies. I'm fucking offended because I identify as a movie watcher. A lot of gamers get super offended when anybody says anything negative about gamers. If somebody says negative things about gamers, my reaction to that is, okay, anyways, I'm gonna go back to playing my game. Fuck you, I don't care. I don't care what you think. I feel the same about when people rag on white people or whatever. Depending on how you want to think about white people and what that means. If someone says, white people are inherently racist and they're the worst and they're terrible people, as someone who looks white to society and would be classed as such, I just say, I don't fucking care, fuck you. Because I'm not facing any particular oppression in my life. And neither are gamers. So if you play games and you identify as a gamer, and somebody says negative thing about gamers, here's a solution. Fuck that person. Who cares what they have to say? Doesn't matter. Feminists. Now, I received a bit of negative pushback last year because I basically let feminists off the hook and I said, just do what you're doing. It's fine. No big deal. So this year I have to do a little bit better. Feminists do indeed feed the trolls too much. And in fact, in my 2016 message, I said I guess feminists are a bit too sensitive. And I returned to that again. A good example was when Milo Yiannopoulos, a right-wing troll, went to Australia. Everyone freaked the fuck out.
Good evening. Violent clashes have erupted in Kensington ahead of a speech from controversial political commentator Milo Yiannopoulos. Mark Santomartino is there. Mark, can you tell us what the situation is now?
Well, Tony, battle lines have been drawn by police in between these two groups of protesters who just moments ago turned incredibly violent against one another. You can't actually see it behind me because these protesters have actually closed in around the police, but there are dozens, if not more than 100 here, most of them in riot gear as they try to make this crowd subside.
Now, it's not necessarily entirely the fault of feminists. I'm sure other people were flipping out about it. But to what extent it was driven by feminists, pick your battles. You don't need to always be offended by a horrific troll being a horrific troll. Like, that's his job. That's his life. The whole point of Milo Yiannopoulos is to be like, hey, I'm gonna check out the fucking feminists. You don't always have to give him what he wants. If no one had given a shit about the fake controversy that the guy tries to create in Australia, he'd have nothing. Other people like Richard Spencer, they say, just ignore Richard Spencer, he'll go away, don't pay attention to him. I disagree, because I think he still has ideas that he's trying to put into the narrative, that he's trying to influence people with. Milo Yiannopoulos doesn't have that. He doesn't really have ideas. He's just got triggering the femitards. That's all he's got. He doesn't have anything else. Take that away, he's fucked. If you take away the controversy from Richard Spencer, he's still gonna be there influencing people's thought process. But if you take away the attention from Milo Yiannopoulos, he dies. He doesn't have anything else. And to the extent that I can blame feminists for that, and for also just other things that I've seen happen throughout the year, I would say, feminists, pick your battles. Stop raping people.
Sir, stop raping people! Stop raping people! Stop raping! Stop raping people! Stop raping the people! You freaks! You filthy freaks! You filthy, raping, murdering freaks!
Just imagine Andrew Breitbart was talking to Hollywood in that situation, and not random people that he was just yelling at. Because he's a lying scumbag. Humanity. Stop it! Me. So, I want to be more involved in substance and making substantial videos, which will require more time, which is a little bit difficult and a conundrum because I will have less time. I'm taking on a lot more responsibilities in the new year, and I do not want to mention what those are, because I do not trust internet people. I am sorry, fans. But unfortunately, my channel is probably gonna slow down a bunch, because I'm not gonna really have much time to do anything, but I will do my best, and I really appreciate all of the views, and I was gonna say I love all of you, but that would be a lie. So, I love some of you. Do I love you? I don't really know you very well. Just like, I appreciate the viewership. Is that true? Yes, it is. It is. But yeah, that's about it. I mean, a bit of an overlong video. But if I don't end up being so productive, I want to thank everybody who supported me and being kind. And to my hate commenters, I want to say fuck you. Fuck your comments. I don't... Okay. This video is gonna end really negatively all of a sudden. Okay. Hate commenters. I was trying to think of something positive to say about you. Fuck you! Fuck you! Okay, okay. Have a good 2018, everybody.